This computer. So, good afternoon, and thank you so much for coming to Lunch and Learn today. It's so delightful to welcome Lisa Yelland, and she's going to be teaching us. I love that. She arrived like that as well. I hasten to add, when it's just me and her. It's like, ta-da! I have arrived. So I know she's just going to fill us with force and joy, that which we all need to get us over that bit of the line that I know becomes a bit more tricky to some than others. And I confess, sales is not my favorite thing. So, Lisa, I'm handing it over to you to teach us the bit that you do best and that we are dying to learn.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for having me, Faye. I am super joyful in my energy today because I'm talking about my favorite thing, which is, yes, sales. So I'm going to be sharing some things with you, but my goal, my intention is to infuse and enthuse you with all things sales. And that's infectious. And I was sharing with Faye just before Faye opened up the room that sales are flying in all over the place. I work inside other people's businesses. It's flowing inside mine. It's flowing. So just know this energy is infectious. And so if nothing else, I'm going to infect you with the joy of sales today in the nicest possible way. I've got some slides. Who doesn't love some slides? And there will be some time for Q&A as well. If you want to ask me anything about my own business, anyone else's, I'm more than happy to share. I just may not share names, obviously, because of client confidentiality. But I really just want to be open and, as I said, just sprinkle some sales magic over everybody today. So I hope that sounds good. I think we've got an hour together. It may not take as long as that, but I'll dive in if that's okay. So I'm going to share my screen and let's see if that works. Can you see how to enroll your next 3 clients?
All
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
fabulous. Okay, without the pushy sales tactics, that's the key thing. And also I want to add on to that as well, without you feeling drained. And often I hear this. Sales can feel quite draining. It can feel quite exhausting. And sometimes that can be just because of where you're at, how your business model is set up. So sometimes there's going to be more intense periods than others. But for many of the people that I speak to, for many business owners, actually, the draining comes from your sales not being aligned either to your values, to the way that you want your business to run, maybe not even to your dreamiest clients. So we're gonna dive into some of that. But as I said, by the end of the session today, I would just really love to have changed your mindset around sales. If there's any awkwardness, if there's any resistance or any drainage, so that's what I would love. So a quick check-in. I would love to know if any of this is landing with you. So feel free to let me know in the chat, or you can give me some kind of reaction on Zoom if you wish, if you want to get involved. And just know, you may have picked up already. I'm quite energetic. I do respond really well to everyone else's energy. So the more you give me, the more I may indeed share with you. Who knows? Let's find out. So I've listed here just a few of the things. It's not an exhaustive list, but maybe for you, you don't feel that you're at capacity. So I'm not a massive fan of being super fully booked necessarily, and that may not even be your goal, but you feel that you've got space where you could enroll more clients, support more clients, sell more products or services. There could be some resistance, awkwardness, or avoidance even around sales conversations. So I don't mean just having a chat and maybe you even talk about your offer, maybe you even make the invitation, but maybe there's some awkwardness around when you talk about money, or maybe in the follow-up, or perhaps if somebody has an objection or if they're not quite ready to move forward, then what do you do? So have a think about your sales process as a whole, not just the bit that maybe sometimes we can hyper focus on because it can show up in other ways. Do you feel as though in an ideal world you would rather that people came to you, that you would rather not have to follow people up or initiate anything? And maybe you also might be feeling that with everything else that you've got going on, running a business, maybe being a mum, other family responsibilities, maybe having a life outside of family and work, your business, there's just too many things going on. So actually to really focus on sales, you're just too busy and you would rather that sales came in from other ways other than you needing to really lead that. So I'm hoping that some of that is landing with you.
Got lots of people with hands up there, Lisa. In fact,
Great.
all of us. Yeah. We all want
Actually,
a bit more.
There we go. I can pop out the chat. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm glad that that's landing. Brilliant. So what we're going to activate today, what we're going to look at today is some common mistakes. There's no shame or judgment around this. I find myself doing these things too, but it's just to gently raise your awareness as to perhaps some of the things that might be blocking client activation. And they also could be draining you as well. How to turn warm contacts into conversations. This is my favorite thing to talk about. We're going to talk about the difference between passive and active selling, and there is a difference, and one of them is a real favorite of mine, and one of them not so much. So we'll talk about that. Wonder if you can tell which one it is. And I'm going to share with you some simple ways to start some sales conversations or re-engage them in a very natural, aligned way for you. And that's going to be in the way of a practical exercise we're going to do together. And my hope is that you're going to have a much clearer, more confident approach to your sales process. So that's what we're going to do. And I hope that sounds like that's something that's going to be super helpful and useful. If you would like a copy of my slides from today, and later on I'm going to be sharing some examples of messages that work really well for me and for my clients, then I would invite you to scan the QR code. It will just take you to a very simple Google form. And then later on today, I will then, with your email, I will send you a copy of these slides. And if you never want to hear from me again, that's okay. You can just unsubscribe. And if you would like to hear from me again, then you'll go into my mailing list and you'll receive updates, tips and tricks and special offers and all sorts of lovely things that you may well be interested in. So if that is appealing to you and you would like, a copy of what I'm going to share today, feel free to scan the QR code. Okay. So I'm going to be sharing just a little bit about me, just to give you some insight into my story and where I've come from. And what I haven't listed on there is the things that I'm passionate about, actually, sales aside, and I genuinely am passionate about selling. And the reason being because it changes lives, quite simply. When you can invite someone to take the next step, to make a change, that has a massive ripple effect. And just know that for many people, it could be the first time that they're engaging in a conversation about support or help or making a change, but it could also be the last time. And so that for me is very human focused. It's very relationship led. It's very in that service energy. And that's why I'm so passionate about sales, because in truth, I'm passionate about people. My other passions are my girls. I'm a mum of two gorgeous girls, a Grace and a Chloe.
Oh.
Grace is 14, Chloe will be 11 on Friday. So we're in all the mix at the moment of choosing options, but also Chloe finishing junior school, as I still call it. So it's all of the year six activities. So yeah, it's a big milestone for her and me, my baby, going off to big school in September. I also love history. I'm a real history nerd and geek, and I love castles, and I feel powered up when I go to old places, and I have to make sure I plan that in regularly, otherwise I feel a bit off. So that's one of the ways that I charge up. I also love champagne. I love the finer things in life. I love nice things, and I really value them. And so it's interesting for me when it's too expensive comes up as an objection, or it's expensive. Actually, I see that as a really positive thing, because for me, it signals value, it signals quality. And so that's just a slight insight into the way that perhaps we can reframe some of the objections that may be coming up for you when you're having your sales conversations. So castles, champagne, I love clothes as well, and obviously love my girls, and I love sales, and also my husband. Let's add in Paul, but he doesn't begin with C, and neither does Grace, but Grace has a C in a name, Paul doesn't, so he's a bit of an outlier. But that's a bit about my passion and a bit about me as a person. In terms of my sales credentials and experience, I've been in sales my whole life. Started in retail, worked in a call center, then worked in corporate for a long time, selling drugs legally as a pharmaceutical rep. And then also I went in to sell medical devices, so hip and knee replacements. And I spent most of my day inside operating theatres, advising surgeons and theatre teams how to implant the hip or knee replacement, how much bone to resect, how to balance the joints, and make recommendations as to the best solution for that patient. So that might sound like a bit of a weird sales role, but in truth, that for me is the epitome of providing a solution where it really matters. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. I'm also a qualified hypnotherapist and psychotherapist. Now, you may be thinking, well, of course, Lisa, you're brilliant at sales because you hypnotize people to buy from you. No, but maybe yes, actually. Understanding how the brain works, understanding people is really important in order to build relationships and to be able to have a brilliant business. Because if you have a business, you have to be in the people business, and understanding people is a big part of that. And interestingly, the year that I trained as a hypnotherapist, that was my best year in sales ever. That's not because I was hypnotizing, it was because all of that work was around mindset. And your energy and your mindset and your confidence and your certainty is everything. And it's more important than the words you say. So I set up a hypnotherapy practice alongside my corporate roles before I became a mum. And then in the last 5 years, I've been working full time in my business as a sales consultant. So now I split my time between delivering trainings and workshops. I also close for other businesses, so I'll sell on their behalf. And I also coach and support my own clients to be able to become brilliant at selling so that they can make more sales in a way that feels really good and easy for them. I've done over 2,000 sales calls in the last 4 years for myself or for other business owners. So this would be for coaches that have a package. And as part of their enrollment process, it would involve a detailed diagnostic enrollment call. And that would be the bit that I would do on behalf of other businesses. And so in just the last few years, I've generated 1.75 million on behalf of those other businesses and also my own revenue as well. So there's been a lot of sales conversations. I've learned a lot about myself. Sales is a mirror. So if it's triggering in any way, there will be something in that. And what I'm most proud of is no pressure tactics, no sleaze, no hustle, none of that stuff, none of the manipulation. It's about finding your best way of selling because that ultimately is going to be so powerful for you and your lovely clients that you're here to help. So that's a bit about me. But if you remember nothing else, castles, champagne, clothes, that's me. So what's the real problem? The real problem for many people that I speak to is that you're really waiting for people to come to you. And the waiting can be hidden. It can be disguised in three key mistakes, I would say. And we're going to go into that because our brains are super sneaky and it will find ways of telling us lies. And in sales, I see this a lot where actually we're just kind of waiting. We are taking action. It's not that we're not doing anything. We are. We're doing all the right things. But the energy behind that is, I would love clients to just come to me. And so the real problem underlying that is maybe there could be, for some of us, too much focus on passive activity when it comes to sales rather than active activity when it comes to sales. And we're going to dive into what that might look like for you. There's nothing wrong with passive. And by passive, I mean it could well present as networking recommendations, or it could be website. It could be you've got a really amazing funnel and you've got an amazing nurture sequence. That may be where you're putting your time and energy. For some of us, it's socials. And I need to be on socials. I need to be visible in that way. And so a lot of your time is focused on creating content. And all of those things do work, absolutely. Focusing on your branding, focusing on your website, your funnels, socials, networking, referrals, yes. However, if those things are not leading to a conversation, and by that I mean you being active in that, you could well be missing out on opportunities. In fact, I know that you are. But what's more important, I feel, is when everything or the majority or there's a big weight towards passive sales activity, that can feel comfortable, but also uncomfortable. It can feel uncertain. It's not a very strong foundation because if the referrals stop, if something happens to your funnel, maybe if social media breaks and you no longer have access to your account, and I know many people that that's happened to, then what do you do? Whereas if you are engaging in the activity that generates conversations, that's something that you are in much more control of. It's actually much more satisfying and it's going to give you so much information and data that you can use for all of those other things. So we're going to dive into that in a bit more detail. So active is where it's at. So the first mistake, and I'm going to share with you some of the symptoms of that and actually what we can do about it. The first one is being visible, but not necessarily starting conversations. And I started to go into that on the previous slide. So this could show up for you in terms of you're brilliant at posting, you are posting consistently, but nothing's really happening from the posting. Where is it leading? Is it leading to conversations? Are people landing in your DMs? Are you inviting people to take the next step with you? Maybe you're spending hours creating content or being visible on socials, but there isn't any actual invitation and outreach from you. So I'm not talking about cold outreach. I'm not a fan of any of the cold stuff. And we'll talk a bit more about the warmer interactions in a moment. But are you actually looking at expanding your network, expanding your reach, and doing some of that heavy lifting to make it easier for your just right people to be able to take the next step with you? Waiting for people to make the first move as well. If I'm being really clear about my offer and I've got all of the credentials and I am posting consistently and I am doing all the things, then if people want it, they'll reach out, won't they? If my offer is that good enough, if it's right for them, they're going to let me know. Of course they are. And in truth, that just doesn't happen. And actually, what we tend to find is that even when it comes to asking questions, if people aren't clear on something, they don't always ask, but they will make up the answers. And so it's our job, it's our role, it's our responsibility to do as much as we can within reason to help fill in the gaps with the actual correct information for somebody, just to reduce the risk of them just making stuff up, which is usually what humans want to do. And the key one, it could show up as you're just really busy. You're busy doing all of the things. But when I ask you, well, I could ask you actually, not to put anyone on the spot, but you don't have to answer this out loud or type it into the chat. But if I said to you, are you posting consistently? Are you expanding your audience? Do you have a website? Is that part of your sales funnel? Are you connecting with people? You're doing all of these things. Maybe you're brilliant on Canva, but how many sales calls have you had this week? Or how many have you got booked in for the rest of June? How many actual sales conversations, not coffee chats, not getting to know people, not connection calls, but actual decision-making calls? I wonder how many of those you might have in your diary. And that may not be relevant for all of us, particularly if you've got a product-based service. It may not be that you need to have an actual sales call, but certainly for a service-based business, that can be a brilliant addition to your sales process. But the sales conversation can take different forms. It can be in the DMs, it could be voice notes, but my point is that it's leading someone to make a decision. Okay. And I'm loving that Hazel is feeling all of this. Yeah. Often the conversation, well, the initiation of the conversation can be challenging. And then the next bit is, well, then what do I say when they say this? Or it doesn't lead anywhere, or you end up making another friend, which is super lovely. And we love connecting with people and making friends. But the real question is, do you need any more friends? You might do. But really, we are in business to generate income and have an impact, to help people, to serve people, to solve problems. So yes, it does absolutely make sense. And some of what I share, hopefully, Hazel, will really help you with that. So what do we want to be doing instead? Well, we want to be starting conversations daily. And I'm going to share with you some ways of doing that. We want to be following up with people. Often I hear, well, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to pester them. I don't want to be a pain. I don't want to be that person. And I can tell you that 80% of sales are made after 5 or more follow-ups. Just let that land for a moment. 5 or more follow-ups. That's massive. I wonder how many of you follow up once, twice, maximum. Now, when I say following up, I do not mean following up with the same message. Do you want to buy my thing? Remember I said about the thing? I'm just bumping it up to the top of your list. Hi, I'm still here. Do you want to buy the thing? I don't mean that. What I mean is, do you have some kind of flow and ways of re-engaging people, leading with service and value, while still reminding them that they wanted this thing? And that follow-up process, when you have it aligned for you, can feel like the easiest thing in the world. But often we don't do that because we don't want to be seen as the person that's pestering. So part of it I would offer you is, if you feel like you're going to be a bother, chances are you won't be, because you're even thinking that. And actually the people that are bothering and pestering, that doesn't even enter their mind. So the fact that you might be thinking that is a good sign. But I would just encourage you to have a think about how could you lead with service? How could you engage people with something that's going to help them, as well as reminding them about the thing? Inviting people to connect as well. And that could just be simple as thanking people for connecting with you on Instagram if they've accepted your connection or they followed you back or whatever it is, depending on the platform that you're on. It could just be making an invitation and then thanking them for connecting with you. It can just be as simple as that. It doesn't need to be a big deal. We don't need to overcomplicate it. And ultimately, the key takeaway from this really is the conversation piece is where it's at. It's always where it's at. And as much as we can have funnels and all sorts of other things going on in our business, if you really want to make some more sales now, within the next day, week, couple of weeks, by the end of the month, focus on your conversations. Because I guarantee if you want to sell more, you need to be having more conversations. And it can just be as simple as that. So is that landing with you in terms of you are being visible, you are doing the things, but maybe the conversation piece could be stronger, refined. You could be more intentional about that. So that's mistake number one. And interestingly, I'll just share actually before I move on to mistake number two, is that when I set up when I left corporate, so it was 5 years ago, I thought I was going to be coaching women on confidence and presenting and all of those kind of things, because that's what I'd overcome for myself. That's where my qualifications are. This is what let me up. And so what did I do when I left corporate? I mean, I didn't really have a plan. I had a very small buffer, but I was just so excited and relieved to be leaving the corporate space for many reasons, and we can talk about that another day. Um, I just did the basics. I picked up the phone and I called people, and I was booked within 5 days. I was full within 5 days. I guess because I was willing to do the thing that most people wouldn't do. Most people wouldn't do that. But I found that really easy. And then, in a way, that was the worst thing that could have happened because I stopped doing that. And so I got so entrenched in the delivery, as often can be the case. And I was really new at this as well. So I'd never served people full time in this way. It'd always been ad hoc and around my job. And then suddenly these clients would finish, and then I'm like, well, now what? I haven't got a pipeline, I haven't got any other sales coming through, I haven't got anyone else to speak to. And so I just went back to basics and repeated the same thing again. But often we think it needs to be more complicated than that. And actually it doesn't. So I've just debunked that myth. Keep it simple. It is just about having conversations. And you will hear me say this a lot. Emails, okay. Yeah, emails to people and get no response. Yeah. And emails are a brilliant way of nurturing people. And I would say it's super important, isn't it? Because we own our email list, whereas on socials, it's, well, we don't. And that could be taken away at any moment. But there could be some things about your emails. You could tweak the language in that, Anna, which will mean that you will get a response. I've made some changes in my own actually in the last couple of months, and people do reply, and it's amazing. And it's so nice then because you've invited the response, they have responded, and then you've got something to go on. It's so hard, it feels hard to get that going in the beginning. And I get that, but once you've got the momentum, it feels a lot easier. So yeah, there's going to be some tweaks there that maybe I could help you with in terms of trying to get some responses and conversations going. But it's brilliant that you're emailing. That's really great. Okay, mistake number two, talking about what you do instead of actually what people want. So maybe you're talking about what people need instead of what they desire. Because in truth, people are going to move because of a feeling, a desire, a result, an outcome, a transformation. They want a change. And so if we're leading, and I'm not saying we don't talk about this because often we do need to go through the detail, people do need to know the logistics. So we are going to need to explain this, but we want to be linking it to what it is that they really desire, what it is that they want. So they might need 6 sessions, but that isn't going to get them to move. What's going to get them to move is what those sessions are going to give them, which is the result, the outcome. Sometimes we can go into over explaining because we want to sound professional and we want to project that we are an expert and we do know what we're talking about. But we can lose people in that because what we can end up doing is talking about, I don't know, industry jargon, not talking in a way that people actually understand, that's going to resonate, that's going to land with them. And so using their language and their words is really important when it comes to relaying information. It may be that you focus on explaining the method, again, instead of how that's going to give them the change that they desire. Now, frameworks are really great, and I think it does add credibility if you've got a proven, tried and tested way of helping somebody get from A to B. But if we focus on that without the link to the change they desire, it's not going to be enough to move them into action. And the last point is really important because I don't know about you, but I've done a lot of ideal client work, and it is important to understand who it is that we really want to be working with in terms of a niche or a description or some kind of way of narrowing things down. They say, don't they, if you speak to everyone, you speak to nobody. So absolutely niching in some way, narrowing things down. But something that I've noticed in my own business and the journey that I've been on over the last 5 years is that I thought I was speaking to my ideal client, but actually, in terms of a scale of 1 to 10 of readiness, 10 being I am the only choice, they are absolutely ready to move, they are aware of the problem, but they also are more motivated by the change that they're seeking, which is at the 10 end. I was actually speaking to the version of my ideal client that was probably about a 3 or a 4, maybe a 5. And so what that can mean is that that can be really confusing when you're speaking to people because you think on paper they're absolutely perfect for you, and then you wonder why they don't move, they don't take action, they don't say yes. And then that starts to chip away at our confidence, and we might think, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe my offer needs looking at, or maybe I need a new strategy, or maybe I need another certification or training or something. I need something. When actually the real problem is that they're just not ready to move, and that's okay. That's okay. But what we really want to be speaking to in our content and our socials and anything that we're doing is that version of our client that is the dreamiest version. They're a 10 out of 10. They only want to work with you. They think you're amazing. They know exactly the problem that they have. They know where they want to go. And they fully trust that you are the right person to solve it for them. And by showing up with that connection to that version of your ideal client, it makes it so much easier to speak to the greatness of that version. And so what we want to be speaking to really is that 10 out of 10 version rather than a 3, 4, or a 5. And that for me was quite an epiphany moment when I really understood the difference between the two. So what we want to be talking about is their desires and goals, the outcome transformation. We want to be able to demonstrate that we get where they are right now and where they want to get to, and take them from this is possible for me to it's inevitable for me. And I've got a couple of pictures at the top of the slide there, one of an aeroplane and one of a, wow, do you know what that is? Do you know what the other thing is? You can see the aeroplane. Can you see it next to my little
Yeah,
gold icon?
some
Do you
kind
know
of
what?
pin thing. I don't know what the other thing is.
It's a hip replacement. It's actually the gold standard hip replacement in the UK, which is the Exeter hip, which is what I used to sell. And the reason why I put a picture of that up there is because that was a very clinical cell, lots and lots of features, loads of features, lots of different sizes, did different things, different materials that you could team it with. And if I did that, and if that's all I talked about, that would bore the surgeon and the theatre team to tears. What we needed to do instead was link it to what that then means. So having all of these size options means that you can have a bespoke, custom implant for that particular patient at a consignment price rather than a custom price. Now, that would land with the surgeons. You may not know what I'm talking about, but that would absolutely pique their interest. The way that we describe the perfect sizing would be that the patient would be pain free. They would be able to garden again. They'd be able to play with their grandchildren. They'd be able to play sport. They would have a quality of life that's missing right now. The instruments that we use were so user friendly, it meant that you could have relatively new theatre teams scrubbing in, which means that you wouldn't need that level of support and that those other team members could be deployed elsewhere. It was also quicker as well. So there was some evidence to back up the fact that they could get an extra patient on the list, and that would then generate more income for the trust. So we spoke about it in that way But if we just led with all of the features, it would just be really dull. And I've also put a picture up of an airplane because when I was focused on my hypnotherapy, I did work with a lot of people with their phobias. That seemed to be people came to me with their fears and phobias. And I did cure their fears and phobias. And I did talk about that. But it wasn't in the sense that if you work with me for 6 sessions, I'm going to cure your fear of flying. And in those 6 sessions, we're going to work together for an hour. I'm going to use my various tools to help rewire your subconscious so that you don't feel this way again. I didn't just focus on that. I also focused on what that then meant, because what the lovely client really wanted was to be able to go on that amazing family holiday. They wanted to plan a holiday that they've always dreamt about, which would involve them getting on a plane. That's what they really wanted. And so when we can connect with the outcome, the feeling, then people are going to move. More than 80% of a decision-making process is emotional, and people feel that in their body. And so when you are really confident and clear on the solution that you provide, you can pick up on these things from all of the non-verbal cues that people give you in a sales conversation that allows you to really support someone in their decision-making process, knowing that in this instance, for example, curing a fear of flying, I mean, it sounds amazing and it is, but there's some work to be done there. And it means that they're going to be facing their fear, which really people don't want to do. And it's going to lead to change. And change is uncomfortable. And humans don't like that. And so that's the challenge that we have in a sales situation where we are helping support people in taking that brave action to making a change. So we want to speak to their desires. We want to focus on the outcome and transformation. We want to connect them with their pain. More importantly, their desire. I'm not a massive fan of focusing on the pain. I'd much rather focus on the outcome and the joy and how different things could be. And we want to tune into that dreamiest version of your client so that you can be in that energy of certainty. I can help. I am brilliant at what I do. There is no competition. It is only me. And that can really help you show up when you're not feeling it. Is that landing with you? Number two, is that resonating? Do you recognize any of those things in yourself? Okay. Number three, waiting to feel confident before you sell. So this could show up for some of us like overthinking messages and follow-up, tweaking, tweaking, tweaking. Maybe a week has gone by, maybe 2 weeks have gone by, and you're like, it's been too long now. Maybe 6 months. Well, there's no way I can follow up with somebody now. I can't message them now. It's been too long. Taking no personally. I said at the beginning, sales is a mirror, and the fear of somebody saying no can feel very, very personal. Now, luckily for me, because I've built the reps up over a long period of time, that's easier for me than maybe for some of you if you've not got any sales experience. But I have to say, it's very different selling my own things than it is selling for somebody else. It's so easy selling other people's things when you believe in what they do, you love everything about them, you know that they can deliver on the thing. Easy. When it's selling your own stuff, it brings up all sorts of things because sales is a mirror and it's very triggering for many, many reasons. So it's building that resilience around this is not a personal rejection and I'm going to be okay either way. And it's building up that detachment from the outcome that's a really important skill. Worrying about sounding pushy, and so that holds you back, being, not just persistent, but stepping over a boundary, coming across as hustly or, leading with that energy. You worry about that, and so that holds you back. It could be for you showing up in terms of, well, I want to get it absolutely perfect. That's not quite good enough. Maybe you're brilliant at planning, thinking about things, but you don't actually pull the trigger on it, or it takes you so long to create a post or an email that maybe half the day is gone, but you still haven't had any conversations with anyone, you actually haven't done any active selling. So the counter to that, the antidote, if you like, is to activate yourself first. You have to sell yourself on yourself first before you can activate that in somebody else. And so a really brilliant exercise to do is to list out at least 50 And if you can do that, go to 100 ways of why you are brilliant, why you are unique, why you are the only one. What is your experience, life experience? What makes you so brilliant to partner with? We have to sell ourselves on ourselves first. That's so important. And just know you don't have to hold the energy of that all of the time. I mean, I don't even know if that's possible. I certainly can't. But you just can think of it like a new jacket, a new pair of jeans that you're trying on just for now, whilst you're taking this bold action. And then you can just take it off and that's okay and get on with the rest of your day. But that energy is so key. We want to be leading. Leading is empowering. Leadership is, I mean, Carly, I know this will resonate with Carly. Leadership is such an important skill in business. We have to be able to lead ourselves so that we can lead others. We have to be able to lead the conversation. And so that is a really important skill. You're not waiting, you're taking action. And this is what our clients need. They need somebody to take, not just control, control's not the right word, but to, yeah, lead somebody to take the next step. That builds trust, it builds a relationship, and it absolutely means that it's going to result in more enrollments. If we're worrying about sounding pushy, just check in with yourself and know that when we are showing up in service, we're honest, we're in our integrity, we're aligned with our values, we're not going to come across as pushy. So we could just put that down. That's just a way of our brain trying to keep us super safe. And we're going to be building the evidence through our conversations. Confidence doesn't come from thinking, it comes from action. You'll feel more confident once you've taken the action. And it's okay not to be very good in the beginning. That's okay, because maybe you've never done it before. Maybe you've never been shown. And so we have to give ourselves a bit of grace and space to experiment and play and refine and improve. But the evidence and confidence will come from the action. And just know that when you're selling the right thing to the right person at the right time, that is a perfect circumstance. That's perfection. That's amazing when that happens. When that's not happening, that again is okay, because if you're leading with service, you're leading with integrity, you're leading with your values, it may just be that it isn't the right thing at the right time for that person, but it might be in the future. And so your responsibility is to make an invitation. And if that person says no, that's okay. But that's not bothering. That's making the invitation. It feels very different. Okay. How is that landing with you? Number 3. Out of those 3, which do you think is the one that lands the most? Is it 1, 2, or 3? Can you remember what they even were? I mean, 3 is there. Waiting to feel confident. Number 1 was being visible, but not necessarily starting conversations. And then number 2 was talking about what it is that you do, but not really what somebody desires. So focus on the needs, not the change, not the transformation, how different things are going to be. Okay, brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so let's dive in to an exercise. So we're going to start with, thank you, Anna, 1 and 3. Yeah, sometimes it's a combination of all 3, and also sometimes it depends on the day or the week or what we've got going on. 2 for you, Faye. Fabulous. Okay. So the first step of the exercise is to check in with your phone, your socials, your email list. Who do you have in your world right now that you have had some contact with? You would class them as warm, as in there's been some interaction. There's some ideas for groups of people to check in with. It could be past clients. It could be engaged followers on your socials. It could be people that you've spoken to in the past that have been, sounds great, but not right now. Any referrals or any referral connections that you've got that sometimes people send people to you. And obviously your network as well. So obviously this would be a great space. But what I would love, I mean, ideally it would be great in the next minute or so, we give you very long to do it. Can you identify 10 specific people? If you can't find 10, 5 is fine. I will even take any specific people as a step forward. But obviously, the more that you have identified, the more that you're going to be able to then take action on. So I'm just going to give you a minute just to have a think about who is in your world right now that you would class as warm, that you can make a list, of specific people so you know their names and you would know how to get in touch with them. So let's just do that for one moment. Okay. And feel free to add to the list. I think sometimes even just by spending a couple of moments just having a think and having a look back can be really quite, oh, actually, there's a few people that I would consider warm that maybe I haven't checked in with for a bit, or there is something that I could reach out to them with, and we're going to talk about that now. So I'm going to share with you three ways that you could start a conversation, re-engage a conversation, activate your current network of warm people. This list is not exhaustive. There are lots of other ways that you can do this, but for the purposes of today, I love the power of three. So we're going to go with three. Okay. So we could just start a conversation in terms of engagement. Genuine curiosity. There is no agenda as such. You are just looking to practice, perhaps, engaging with somebody. Maybe that's where you're starting from. You've never sent a message to anyone in your life. And so that would feel a much easier first step. The second option is offering a market research call. These are quite fun to do, where this has high value for them and insight for you. So it could be a market research call. Or the third option could be a high value call invitation. This is where you are making a clear offer, but you are also enveloping that conversation around some kind of roadmap or audit or some kind of deliverable for that lovely person. So I don't think number one needs any more explanation. I will give you an example of the thing that you could send in a moment. The second one is a really brilliant post, particularly, or even an option on an email to say something along the lines of maybe you've got a new offer, maybe you've got something that you feel really excited about, and you just want to road check it, sense check it. You want some people that you know are going to be perfect for the offer to just answer some questions around it, just so that you can get some feedback before you actually launch it. And when you position it as, I would love your help, or I'm looking for these types of people for this particular reason, and in exchange, I'm going to offer you something of value for them, you'd be amazed at how many people do say yes to these types of calls. And actually, what often happens, not always, and this isn't a sales call as such, and obviously you would be leading the conversation, but also you would ideally love the person to say, actually, this would be perfect for me. I want to know more about it. And so it can lead into a sales conversation, but the invitation is going to be coming from them, as in they're asking for more insight. The third option is my favorite, and this is what I help all of my clients to set up as part of their sales process, where you are delivering on some kind of transformation, some kind of result on that call, but you are absolutely enveloping it around a discovery phase and the diagnostic and then the prescription that comes at the end in terms of what the right solution is for them. It may well be working with you, and if that person's open to hearing it, then you can go through all of those options and hopefully enroll the client. So with those different options in mind, perhaps just put a 1, 2, or a 3 next to the list of names that you've got, so that you've got some sense of who would be good just to re-engage with, who might be a fit for a market research call, or who could be a brilliant fit for something a bit more higher value that's a bit longer and that ultimately really is a sales call, but I would call it a high value call. So just have a think of what could be an option for each of the people that you have on your list. And I'm going to share some ways of doing that to give you some sense. And I wonder if I can cut and paste it into the chat actually. I know this is a bit wordy. I'm not a fan of wordy slides, but sometimes needs must. So now you feel free to change the language, and often I do. These are just some examples. Just make it fit the person. We always want to be leading with something bespoke and specific. So it's really great if you can add in there some kind of something that you've noticed, something that you're following up on, something about a post that you've seen recently, something that's relevant so that it feels like it is personal, because we do want it to be personal. So the first one is just an engagement piece. It could be, you popped into my head. I say that all the time, genuinely. That may not be part of your language, so make it fit you. I wondered how things are going with your business or the situation. What's changed? Has anything changed since we last spoke? How's it going even? It could be a bit more open than that. So that could be a really easy message that you could send to somebody. So you're not actually selling anything, you're not inviting them to anything. It's just, how's it going? Has anything changed? Is that thing still a challenge for you? The second option is, and I do say random things all the time, so I would probably put random question, but you may not. The second option could be, are you still looking at supporting or focusing on this goal or challenge right now? And it could be that you bring in, I'm having loads of conversations, or this is coming up all the time for me, and I thought of you. So it's just re-engaging. Is this thing still a thing? Are you still focused on sorting this thing? Did you still want to hit those 10K months or 50K months or whatever it might be? Number 3 is a market research one. So you could say, I'm doing a bit of market research at the moment. I'd love your help. I'd love your perspective, somebody that I know. Time is precious. So in return, I'd love to offer you something. So it could be pick my brains, call, that might be appropriate. It could be some free samples of something. It could be a coffee voucher, some kind of resource that you think would be of value to them as a thank you. And these calls are really short, so it's just literally a 15-minute call. But I think if you lead with, I'd love your help, often people respond really well to that. And then the final one is a proper sales call, if you like, where you are delivering some real insights, something that's really going to help them. And if they want to explore working with you, then there will be the opportunity for that. But if they don't, that's okay too. So one way that you could word that is, I've opened up a few complimentary spaces for my sales up level sessions and immediately thought of you, happy to explore what's working in your sales, where you might be stuck, what could help you create more momentum. This is for me, obviously, sales. So insert your thing. No pressure, but let me know if you'd like the link. I'm a massive fan of permission-based selling. So I'm not a massive fan of just dropping links into people's DMs. We want to ask their permission if that's what they need, want, or desire. And then if they say yes, then you can share the link. I think that's really important. So just have a think if any of those might fit with the types of people that you've got in your list, and whether you could send something like that. I can imagine that your language is going to be quite different. And actually, since I wrote these, I send lots of different types of messages. Some of that still feels aligned, some of it I would change. But you get the gist. It will get you started. And so what is the next step we're going to take? Well, I wonder in the next couple of minutes whether you could actually send a message. Now, usually I challenge everyone to send a message to everyone on their list. That may be a bit of a push. We're not into pushing, but we are into expanding and maybe doing something that feels a bit uncomfortable. So maybe you could just pick one, because it's a fairly short session today. Could you pick one person with one message and send it now, and then type done in the chat when you've done it, and then we can celebrate. And that's sales activity. That's active sales activity. And just know if you can do it once, you can do it 10 times, you can do it more than that. So it's just building up the reps, building up the habits. This is just what we do until it becomes something that is just a natural, wonderful habit in your business, daily activity that actually generates conversations that you can then respond to and enroll clients from. So let me know when you've done it. And I'm going to do it as well because I need to be practicing what I'm preaching. So I will do it too. I know who I'm following up with. This is a follow-up one for me. Well done, Anna. Amazing. Well done, Faye. Would you have done that today otherwise, Faye?
No, it was on my mind too,
There we
and
go.
and because I'm flagging, it would have shifted.
Yeah,
It was like, oh, just do it.
yeah.
And I know she's warm as well, so I do need to do it.
Amazing. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really important point, actually, because it does take up headspace, this stuff. As much as
Yeah.
we try and write things down and compartmentalize, it takes up headspace. And so it is a way of taking care of ourselves to actually just do the thing. I know, other things are going on as well, but I'm glad that we've created space for you to do that today.
Yeah, it does. It feels a bit like, when you need to do a bit of exercise and you don't do it, and then you start to
Yeah.
feel a bit guilty about it.
Yeah.
It ends up a bit like that.
Yeah, it
That,
does. It
you
does.
know,
Yeah.
you're capable of doing it, but because you haven't done it and you've put it off, you're
You feel
starting to feel
bad.
worse.
That's a
Also,
Yeah.
really good analogy.
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Okay. We're coming to the end, so feel free to carry on with your messages if you haven't quite completed that. So I know for some of you it's going to be a bit more in depth. So really the summary of the mindset shift here is that we want to be connecting with our 10 out of 10 client when we're taking action, we're following up, we're sending messages, we're showing up live, whatever it is that we're doing in our business, that active stuff. Well done, Hazel. It is scary, isn't it? So well done on you taking that action. That's amazing. Love that. Brilliant. And guess what? Nothing bad has happened. Nothing bad has happened. But you've built a rep in there that is going to go some way. You keep doing it now to build that muscle. So we want to be connecting with that 10 out of 10 version of our ideal client. Just know that you're not bothering. You're only going to be bothering people that don't want to hear from you, in which case it's better to know, and you can put your energy into the people that do. So you're inviting, you're not pushing, you're being helpful, it's service. You're not desperate, you're taking the lead. So send the messages, invite the conversation, help somebody take that next step. So in terms of what we've covered, some mistakes that stops client activation. We've looked at how to turn some of our warmer contacts into conversations. You've just done that right now. It is going to generate something. And of course, the more messages we send, it is a bit of a numbers game. It is. So we want to be sending more than one. So keep doing that. Go through your list. And then when you've done that 10, then create another list and work through them. There is a difference between passive and active selling. Passive is great. And that's we are going to need things where we don't need to be super involved with, and absolutely yes. But if you are not at the sales that you would love, active is where it's at. So it's creating some nice active sales practices around that that feel good and feel aligned so that you keep doing them. I've shared with you some simple ways to start some sales conversations, and we've gone through an exercise to activate some of those potential clients. And hopefully that's felt quite straightforward. It's felt quite clear. It doesn't need to be complicated. And if you would love some further support from me, I am offering free sessions. This is an example of a high value call. Normally, when I charge for them, it's my favorite recurring number, 222. My birthday is the 22nd of December, which is not quite 222, but there's three twos in it. There's just a one in the middle. I genuinely only have 5 spots, so that's limited spaces. And we can work on any area of your sales that you wish. I will be able to help you. I've never not been able to help somebody on one of these sessions, and the feedback is always brilliant. If nothing else, I'm going to give you some excitement around your sales. We're going to work through some blocks. Could be strategy for you. For most people, it isn't, but it might be. It could be, I just don't know what to say. I need some help with some questions. How do I handle this conversation? So whether it's leads, whether it's conversations, whether it's conversion, we can look at your biggest, easiest, warmest opportunities. We can look at how I can help you create some confidence and consistency in your sales, and some really simple shifts that are going to help you sign clients more quickly. So if that feels like, Lisa, I'd love to take you up on one of those free spots. There's another QR code. Book in with me and we can explore all of that. And of course, if you are considering working with me further, then we can talk about that. But equally, that is not a prerequisite for you booking one of those calls. I would be very happy to help any one of you in Faye's amazing community. So that's all from me today. Look at that, just up to the hour. Ah,